Let them connect. Okay, you got it. Okay, yeah, Shresha, tell me.
Abhay, you
Uh,
can start now.
so,
So, just a minute, huh? Are you giving me the Sada? Can you give me the share
yes.
screen?
Yes, yes, sure.
Okay, done, done. Yes, Shresha, please tell me.
So what I was wondering was that immigration. I actually had a few things in mind which I wanted to discuss with you. I think I can do that later. This
Okay, I think you can do that later because most of the other people may not
yeah, yeah, yeah.
understand what we are talking about. Shrestha had shared an article on caregiving and how today caregiving, the whole definition. And again, this also goes back to whatever we have been talking in this classes, uh, especially academic and scholarly work. We always start with defining what we are talking about because definitions can change based on who is defining what, and unless you are very clear about what the definition is, things can be understood in very different ways. In fact, let me start by telling you. So I was seeing. I don't know, in one of the earlier classes. In fact, we had talked about West Asian diaspora, where we talked about Palestinian and the Jew diaspora. And after this conflict between Israel and Palestine started, so I did mention about the fact there was this interview by Sky News, which was done by Piers Morgan with a Egyptian stand-up comedian called Bassem Youssef. Incidentally, Bassem Youssef, this Egyptian gentleman, is a cardiac surgeon turned into a stand-up comedian. So they did this interview where Bassem is talking about nuances of the conflict, and again, as I said, in any subject that we talk about, there is a lot of things and nuances, and unless everybody understands the different point of views, we can always become armchair academicians in trying to do a reductionist understanding and put it out on social media. So there was this interview which went viral. Then, subsequently, based on the fact that this interview went viral, they had a second interview. In fact, if you are, they both are there on YouTube. Piers Morgan interviewing Basim Yusuf. You should see both the interviews. In fact, in the second interview, Basim Yusuf, who's an Egyptian Arab, talks about Jews. And the interesting part of the Jews that he talks about is the fact that uh, when the first crusade was announced by the Pope, by the Roman Church, that was in the 11th century, about 1092 or 1095 or whatever it is. The Christians of Europe, mobilized to try to go and, free the land of the Christ. But because they were in Europe, they said, why go all that way to kill the non believers? Let's kill the non believers in Europe. And for Christians, the non believers were Jews. There is a famous massacre of Rhineland. You can, Google that, which happened in the 11th century. So Basim was, as an Arab, an Egyptian Arab, was talking about the fact that Jews were a European problem, which then they imported or exported to Palestine. And in fact, after World War II, when the Europeans wanted to create the state of Israel to take care of the Jew problem, as he put it, Uganda was the first choice. A portion of land in Uganda was the first choice. Palestinian was the second choice. So again, when we talk about diaspora and migration studies, remember we are doing a lot of interdisciplinary one in terms of history, geography, anthropology, media. We're talking about so many things. And in fact, as we are now talking about the European diaspora, we will realize the fact that we have all these understanding of the Asian and African diaspora, and we always feel that the Asian and African diaspora is basically all these people from Asian Africa migrating or emigrating to the Western world. But that's not the case. There is a huge amount of emigration from the Western world, primarily the European states. And one of the reasons is that all human beings, as I keep telling you and I keep repeating, the story of human history is a story of migration. And migration is always based on multiple factors. So, human beings, whenever they get a better deal in whatever they consider a better deal, migrate. Again, I see a lot of new people. So, for any person who wants the PPTs, can always write me a mail. I'm putting my mail ID on the chat. Just a minute. I have put it in meeting group chat. Let me put in the meeting group chat. It's Abhay Chavla 13 at the rate of duck.com. So you can send me a email. That way we can be connected. You can. I am not on WhatsApp, but in case I am on Telegram and Signal, that's my number for Telegram and Signal. You can always connect with me on that. So today last time we did the French diaspora. Today we are looking at the German diaspora. So let's look at the German diaspora. In fact, I bring out, again, as I said, most of my presentations are, the framework is your course material, but I do pick up a lot of other information which I'm able to glean on the net, and I incorporate it as a part of the presentation. Again, for people who have joined new, you can stop me at any moment of time during the presentation by asking a question or by adding something that you know. In fact, we have a lot of diverse experienced people who are able to value add as we go along. Again, the basic idea of a classroom is multiple points of view to be able to get a vaster understanding of whatever we are talking about. So this is German diaspora. We'll start with the objectives, the same objectives, history, relationship, and some policies. And it's always good to start with history. And always I say, whenever you need to understand anything which is happening today, you need to go back a little to figure out how we have reached out here. Because remember, nothing happens anew. Every new thing is built on the old. There is never something which comes out from vacuum. So inevitably there is a need, there are people working on it, and something comes about. So the concept of Germany as a distinct region in Central Europe can be traced to Julius Caesar, who referred to the unconquered area of Rhine as Germania and distinguish it from Gaul. So if you have read Asterix comics, they keep talking about Gaul, they keep talking about Caesar. So there was this Germania and Gaul. That's how the comics also have come out from history. In fact, Martin Luther, who led the Protestant Revolution, Reformation, was from Germany in 1517. Napoleon established the Confederation of Rhine as a German puppet state after the French defeat. But after the French defeat, the German Confederation was established under Austrian presidency. So the whole history of Europe itself is, if you go through the history of Europe, you will not find too many differences with what we see as the history of Asia, and in Asia, history of China, in history of India. The world history is of wars, of conquest, of kingdoms, of rulers, and the shifting boundaries. The nation state is a very new concept. Then the German revolutions of 48-49 failed, but Industrial Revolution modernized the German economy. Prussia with the capital Berlin grew in power. Unification of Germany was done by Bismarck in 1871. So, these were all the things which were happening. 1871, remember, the British were firmly getting ensconced in India and were taking over the country. Reichstag and elected parliament had only limited role. Germany joined the other powers in colonial expansion in Africa and Pacific. 1900, Germany was the dominant power of European continent. And if you notice, there was this rivalry between Germany and Britain, which was happening, which finally ended up in World War One, and then there was World War Two. And then Germany led the Central Powers in World War One, defeated partly occupied forces, and they were forced to pay reparations. In fact, that forcing to pay reparations was the reason of the rise of Hitler and the Nazi Party. Then the German Revolution of 1819 ended German Empire. There was in 30s there was this Great Depression. There was popular resentment. And Germany at the end of the world to establish a total. So again, as I said, inevitably, everything which happens is built on something which has happened previously. Things don't just happen without a reason. There are multiple reasons. More often than not, when we look at something in the media presents a very reductionist picture because they look at it from one point of view. That is where academics and scholars come in to give. Again, academics and scholarship also leads to multiple points of view, and then one has to understand the nuances of it. German unification in 1871 had a tremendous influence on Germans who found themselves living outside, moving beyond the newly formed empire boundaries. And remember, all these boundaries were shifting. We have seen that in Asia, we have seen that in Africa. These boundaries keep on shifting. They were increasingly portrayed as outposts of a greater German empire. Remember, there is a similar idea which has of various nations in Asia, in Africa, ethnic ties to motherland, safeguarding for their own empire state. These terms also sound very similar. Were redefined from the geographical dispersed and fragmenting grouping to a purposely cohesive transnational. Now, this is one, idea or one point of view in terms of a cohesive transnational community of spirit. As we will see, the German society itself was divided ethnically. As the primary stage of ethnic identity, the German language gained ideological overtones. Schneider in 2011. And when we study history, we see how uncanny resemblances are to our own. Let's look at it further. So now German ethnic groups' internal coherence was restricted, found themselves in certain situations, resulting in hybrid identities and various host minority relationship, something we have already done in the Asian diasporas and African diasporas. And a whole lot of times when we have these questions, or we are made to feel that it's possibly the Asians, or let's say the Indians, who are extremely split in various identities. It's the same with communities across the world. No community is holistic or homogeneous. There is a heterogeneity of various things in terms of ethnicity, religion. In India, we have caste, and blah blah blah. The imaginary.
Here the various host minority relationships. I don't understand what exactly.
So, for example, I just let me come to the next slide. Let me come to the next slide. You will understand this. So there are three main German groups. So now inevitably, it's like the Indian ecosystem. When Indians are emigrating, let's say to the US, there will be Indian identity, which is a national identity. But beyond the national identity, there will be other identities. So for example, there is the Bahujan identity, or the lower caste identity. Now that minority host relationship. Now again, among the Indians, what is the percentage of one identity or one group vis-a-vis other groups? We cannot go and say that the whole Indian diaspora is a monolith, homogeneous diaspora. It is further split up into multiple, identities, and those identities could have a minority host relationship. Shrestha?
Yes, sir, I got it.
So, for example, in Germany, there were three main German ethnic groups: the Schwabs, the Zipsters, and the Transylvanian Saxons. Now, again, they had their own. The Schwabs were Catholic, the Zipsters were Protestants, and Transylvanian Saxons represent another variation. Now, you see, in spite of the fact that they were predominantly Christians, the Christian religion itself was split into multiple sects. So every time, a lot of times when media tries to project a particular identity, because that's a reductionist way the media operates. And that inevitably also understand media the way one of the tools which media employs is something called stereotyping. That is a very reductionist way for a large heterogeneous population to understand things. But in academics and in scholarship, one needs to understand the various point of views and nuances onto an approach. So there are these three, and not only these three ethnic groups are in terms of religious sects, they had a different idea of understanding of Germanness. So the Zipsters promoted the idea of assimilation into the Hungarian culture. The Schwabs supported the spread and domination of pan-Germanism, while Transylvanian Saxons advocated the creation of multi-ethnic and linguistic Roman Empire. The Zipsters' idea was French state, the Schwabs was Nazi Germany, and the Transylvanian Saxons was the Swiss Confederation. And inevitably, you can always now see how by World War II, by Hitler coming and the Nazis coming in, how the Nazi Germany, one race, one state came into the being. They would have been predominant of Schwabs in the thought process, which
So,
is bolo.
you in your slides also probably brought it up that the majority in which is the ethnic group which exists in minority.
No.
Okay.
As we were talking, I suddenly realized that I should have seen what is the percentage of those ethnic groups. So you can Google and search. Okay, so German nationality. Prior to World War I, pan-Germanism had not taken serious root with many German ethno-linguistic communities. 35, the German represented one of the largest European ethnic diasporas with 95 million German speakers in the world, 65 million in Germany and 6.5 Austria. And that is one of the reasons why when Hitler started, his expansion, he looked at the idea of the larger Germany, because there were all these German speakers across. The remaining 23.5 was scattered across the globe, with the largest concentration Eastern Europe, which is how the expansion of Hitler Germany happened. By 38, in 20 quick years, the majority had become German nationalists, if not outright Nazis. Which validates my point that everything builds on the old. Every new thing builds on the old. So inevitably, there is something which leads up to something else. And to understand what is the current situation, you need to go back and see how it is building on. So a little bit about the migration history. Substantial immigration to United States with over 1 million immigrants during 80s and 5.5 million between 1816 and 19. So it was not just that the people from Asia or Africa were moving. It was that the Europeans were also moving. And inevitably, we keep talking about the fact that US as a country was a country of immigrants. So every every community or individual who was persecuted or felt persecuted moved to America. Throughout the post-war era, immigration was high until 56. And if you remember, in one of the earlier units, we had done this story of this Kerala. Again, Shrestha had shared that. Kerala nurses going to Germany. In fact, Germany, we have also done when we were doing Turkish diaspora about how Turkey had entered into this contract with Germany for guest. Germany took a lot of guest work recruitment, which overtook emigration, in fact. 67 in 2013, there was net emigration of about 1.4 million German citizens. But it was uncertain how many of them returned to Germany. And we will also see, in fact, in the British diaspora, in the French diaspora, and the German diaspora, now we are seeing that, for the Europeans, the diaspora will definitely be providing remittances back home, depending on how extended families they have. But the remittance are not worth discussing. So it's not huge. And more often than not, because there are nuclear units, once the unit moves, there are no connections back home, or there are very few connections back home. It's not mentioned anywhere. So obviously, when we talked about Asian and African diaspora, there was a huge amount of remittances coming back home, which showed that there was large extended families. Whereas in the European diaspora, we are not seeing that. Germany continues to have a substantial number of immigrants, temporary or permanent, with 2.5 lakh living in 2017 alone. So inevitably, again, British, French, German looking at a better deal. Now, how do you define that better deal is a different thing. It could be, for as we had seen in the British diaspora, they look at retirement outside, obviously, because let's say an Asian country would be much cheaper than the British Isles or the European states. Everything is much more expensive out there. This is Germans across the world. And if you see, there's a large concentration in US, there's a large concentration in Brazil. There is a substantial contribution in Canada, Argentina, South Africa, and then they are distributed across.
And interestingly, even Russia has like a good number of Germans
You
migrating.
need to understand, Shrestha, out there is because Russia, a lot of
Yes, ally.
German-speaking people were already there,
Okay.
right, historically. In fact, that was one of the reasons why Hitler attacked Russia, because that was a part, because there were ethnic minorities or German-speaking people across Europe and Russia, that there was this idea of the larger Germany.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So in terms of German immigration, there's a 2013 Immigration Protection Act, which has made regulation standard throughout Germany, legislates and limits who may consul German residents or any immigration. Does not mean that everybody goes through this, but more often than not, there's a Protection Act, establishes federal government responsibility for immigration protection. There's a Federal Ministry for Families, Seniors, Women and Youth, which grants licenses. Again, when we are talking about the European diaspora, I have mentioned it earlier. Let me again mention you. Europe is a very small area. European countries are very much smaller. Their populations are extremely small and manageable. When we were to try and replicate such things on countries like India and China, they would fail miserably, because this is a huge countries with huge populations, and the same will go for Africa. The size of the countries are big, the populations are big. Managing smaller countries and smaller populations is much simpler than bigger countries, especially diverse countries. Germany was long known as the undeclared or reluctant country of immigration, with so-called guest worker migration from 50s initially. Now, this is again how how we understand Germany. So we understand Germany as a country of immigration or a reluctant immigration, but we are seeing that simultaneously there's been a lot of emigration. There has been a substantial migration of ethnic Germans from Central and Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union. Shresha, that's how that Russian area is marked with Germans. There are these ethnic Germans. And remember, historically, people were always on the move. So that's how things, are much different than what we understand them or what we have read about them. With a peak of 4 lakh in 1990, this temporary turnover has contributed to solid recognition of Germany as an immigration country. So today also, when we see the news that Germany is taking so many Ukrainians or so many people from Africa, we almost feel that, oh, all immigration is happening into Europe, but that's not the case. Have a substantial number of immigrants, temporary or permanent, with 2 lakh 50, 2.5 lakh living in 2000. Many countries in global north. Germany has not established strong institutional links with those immigrants. So so from all these units, it definitely appears the fact that Asia and Africa are much more focused on the diaspora than the Western countries, than Europe, the European countries. Possibly because of the fact, they are much more developed. The fact is they are not dependent on remittances, because Asian African countries are heavily dependent on remittances from their diaspora, and that's where possibly the focus is more on the diaspora. Data on those leaving the country is based on those who have deregistered from a German residence. Again, that's per law. When you enter Germany, you have to register yourself. When you leave Germany, you have to deregister. We will see in another slide. Does not have a formal estimation of the number of German citizens living abroad. Though I don't think so any government would have a formal estimate. There are approximations based on surveys, on UN data, on migration studies. There are two factors which prevent one single accurate figure from being achieved. First, that German citizens can be, again, like French, German citizenship can be acquired abroad through birth to a German citizen. And second, that temporary immigrants cannot be distinguished in the immigration data from permanent. So you need to deregister once you leave Germany, but there's always a possibility that you might go out and come back and then go out without having to deregister. Because more often than not, that registration requirement of the government is for getting benefits. The welfare benefits which the government gives. We'll see in the slide. In 2013, UN estimates under 2 million German citizens living abroad, with US, Turkey, Switzerland, UK, and Spain as top 5 destinations, are difficult to find, which we have seen. Who had deregistered and left Germany is considerable. Now, inevitably, the people who are leaving Germany are considerably younger, they are more educated, which brings us to what we have been talking about as the digital diaspora. And inevitably, the youngsters today, there's a new breed of digital diasporas which are happening. These are youngsters across the world who are moving into areas wherever they get better opportunities. Having tertiary education. Okay, some engagement policies. Country which has neither an explicit emphasis on immigrants nor many policies intended specifically for them. Most part, German are residence-based. Access to right is thus associated with residency rather than holding German still. Two clear exceptions. One is a robo system which enables voting from abroad. Germans like French, you can vote from abroad. Other is facilitating access from abroad to pensioners for years working. So they have a complicated system. In fact, the German system is more based on discretion of the consuls which they have abroad. French had much more focused policies by the government. Germany does not. Policies vis-a-vis national residing as limited. They are otherwise folded into relevant ministries. So everything is done by relevant ministries. Discretion exercised by consular officials playing an important role. So it's not written anything specific. It's more discretionary. To be included in various policies under certain conditions, but they are rarely stated explicitly and function more on the basis of exception rather than rule of law. So interesting. That's how it is different from French. And remember, France and Germany have a traditional rivalry because both are, try and, power for Europe, the France and German. Specific policy and structures for German minorities in Central and Eastern Europe, the former Soviet Union, and Southern Denmark in what is called historical legacy, including post-war reconciliation. Clear policy have been developed. So only for these populations, there is a clear policy. For the rest of the immigrants, there's not very clear policy. It's based on discretion of the consuls. The responsibility for collating and evaluating all information as well about counseling was delegated to the Federal Agency for Immigrants and those working abroad. That's the German name. I just put the German name. And Unit XMV 26 in the BVA Federal Office. Now, the interesting part is this BVA. I tried to search their website. This is their website. Unless at that particular point when I was looking at their website, it was it was misbehaving. But that is the website that I came across. So basic a website. You can Google search and see if the website has changed. But this is the website which I came across when I was looking at the BVA website. And in fact, always one of the thumb rules that I go by is if you want to see an organization, an institution, or anything, try and look at their website. Their website gives you an idea about what the organization is about. Are they serious about delivering service? Considering the fact we are in the 21st century, digital media becomes a very important task. Digital media is a very visible media for the outside world. And if you're not spending enough time to, design that outreach, then you know what kind of an organization it is. The BVA unit does not process any claims, nor does it dispense advice. The unit's activities are limited to managing a web page, provides links to information concerning immigration and return migration, including links. So there is a FAQ where you can, go about. There are various FAQs which you can see, and then there is consular support. Unit instead directs Germans considering of immigration to. Now, interestingly, the two welfare organizations are the Catholic and the Protestant Church. Located under the Federal Ministry of Family Authority, these associations are also financially supported by the ministry and are responsible for advice on immigration and return. So in spite of the fact that, they involve the church, which is a religious organization, there are very clear-cut marked areas and say you can go there, and then it is supervised. A church does not mean it is unsupervised. There, it's brought under a welfare association and it is supervised. These associations also financially supported by the ministry, responsible for advice on immigration and return to Germany. on the basis of exception only. We have seen that, and would be handled by ministry on whose remit the question falls after the treatment of case by the consular. And consulars officials are powerful because they have a discretion. Unit refers to but the unit responsible for overseeing elections, there's an elections by Ministry of Interior, refers to German nationals abroad. And now the German national abroad also have different nomenclatures by various entities of the government. The term Ausland Deutsch was once used by the government to refer to German ethno-national minorities living in Eastern. So you see, there is a certain amount of confusion out there itself, and yet because of a smaller entity and smaller population, these contradictions are handled well. Now refer to this institution as German minorities, Deutsch, however, whatever the German word is, rather than Germans living abroad. Although some academics and think tanks do continues to use the term Ausland Deutsch. It is not an entirely uncontroversial term. The refers to Germans abroad. No explanation is given in these cases. So you see, a smaller country. Shreya, I think it is being recorded. Shreya, the whole lesson is being recorded on YouTube. Shreya? Shreya is there or not? Shreya Ghosh, are you there? Okay. Anyway, this is being recorded on YouTube, so you can always go back and check it up. And again, as I said, in case you...
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in case you need the presentation, you can send me an email to abhechavla13@duck.com.
Okay.
Okay, Shreya. Yeah, Shreya,
Okay,
tell me.
sir. No, sir. Actually, I'm working, so sometimes I am unable to attend the class. So, if it is recorded, it is convenient for me.
All classes are recorded on YouTube.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
There is a YouTube channel. You can go in the group and check out which is the YouTube channel, or you can connect with any of the students. They'll tell you the link. All classes are recorded.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for the information.
Okay. So all individuals living in Germany, both German and foreign, are required within 2 weeks of moving in to register. A common procedure to access services such as monthly child allowances, social support, welfare, unemployment benefit. So essentially, remember, one of the modern, the characteristics of modern welfare state is welfare. Politics, for example, we see during the Indian politics, specific words are given to welfare. However, the larger issue of democratic modern states are welfare for their citizens. And remember, these are developed countries, and yet they provide all these welfares. So we need to understand, the larger context. On the other hand, individuals who are permanently leaving one's residence or whose next residence is not Germany must deregister within 2 weeks. Those who are intending to leave Germany only temporarily are not captured in the data. So obviously, there is a certain amount of confusion which happens. Have a possibility of signing up for the purpose of emergency notification. So they have a possibility. Germans abroad managed by the Foreign Office. Again, if you see, various ministries and offices manage various aspects, and there would be definitely certain amount of confusion, things falling in the cracks, and yet it is managed because of a smaller population. Elephant is designed for travelers and temporary migrant, does not require deregistration from a domestic, contacted in case of a national crisis. The consular networks. Now, if you look at the policies, there's a consular network which is represented by 220 representatives, embassies and consulates, and over 330 honorary consuls. And these are powerful because they have discretionary power. Besides this, All four political parties, Christian Democrats, Social Democrats, Free Democrats, and Greens, have a limited number of branches located abroad, established by individuals, German citizens living abroad. We are now seeing the Indian political parties also have chapters abroad. So there is a certain amount of, and because China is a single party, so that single party will have their chapters abroad. So inevitably, each country is, having the same model. Key engagement policies. There are distinct differences in policies and procedures for German citizens living abroad in EU and EEA than elsewhere. Slight differences for voting, significant ones for consular protection and access to social protections. So there are different policies, and the European Union provides them a certain security in terms of residence. Voting from abroad started in 85, is one policy area with significant positive development in recent years. In line with other countries' expansion of the right to vote from abroad, governs the action that consular office can take vis-a-vis German national abroad's great deal of discretion. So obviously these officials are very powerful because there is a great deal of discretion. Then, of course, there are the German schools abroad. Coordination is by BVA, coordinating material, pedagogical, and financial support, financed by the German Foreign Office. There are 140 German schools, both for local, the host country local, and German students with a German high school leaving certificate, and all the students can have access to higher education and technical training in Germany. Remember, Germany education does not have tuition fees. So, there is other cost, but the education does not have tuition fees. Deutsche Welle's DW Radio and Television is German public broadcaster intending to counter Soviet propaganda initially in providing information to East Germany. Today, it fosters the German language to disseminate information about Germany as a democratic state and lead to cultural engagement, which we have again seen how language is used to reach out. The Goethe Institute, Goethe Institute is Germany's cultural institute aiming to provide German. In India, it's called the Max Muller Bhavan. Its primary audience is non-Germans, for instance, students or application for spousal visa in Germany, but demonstrate German language competence. The first Goethe Institute was established in 52 in Athens. There are 159 Goethe Institutes in 98 countries. So these are cultural engagement policies. Let's sum up. Germany now solidly recognizes itself as an immigration country. The memory of being an immigration still affects its policies with protection of immigrants from unscrupulous agents. Still seems to maintain an overriding belief that those who have immigrated have, in doing so, severed all ties and connections. That is kind of, the difference between Asia, Africa, and Europe. Rightly or largely granted on basis of residence rather than German citizens. Rights are largely on the basis of residence. 2 exceptions with access to voting right. Other rights are granted only in exceptional basis. Country which has neither an explicit emphasis on immigrants nor many policies intended specifically for them. So that's how it comes across. And the other references and suggested readings are there in your course material. I picked up 3. You can see that, and there are some DOI documents which you can Google search. I think that's about all. Any questions? Let me switch on my video. Hi guys. Any questions? Any question, guys? Or did I go too fast?
No, sir, you weren't too fast, but I was just looking at my notes, and maybe if I have something, I can ask you in the meanwhile.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shrishna, I think you must share this the caregiving article with everybody. Though it's not directly diaspora and migration studies, but yet today with this migration and how caregiving is affected because of technology mediated media, because of all these migrations, how things have changed and how we looking at things in a different way. In fact, that's what I said, no, the whole aspect of diaspora studies has turned on its head because that concept of longing for home or to wanting to return back is no longer the same, because today you have a 24 by 7 into 365 media which allows you to connect back. So you are you whenever you have a longing, you just pick up a messaging app and you can do a video call, you can do FaceTime, you can see what is happening. There is real time information which is flowing around. The NRIs are as much clued into information what's happening in or the diasporas are as much connected to the information happening in the home country as they are to host country. So in fact, it becomes a kind of how do they manage this? Obviously, there will be this identity conflicts and so, but that longing for the home reduces that much because now you're connected back.
Yes, sir, I'll share it in the group also.
Do we need to do a comparative study about it? About what, Kalpana?
Hello, sir.
Kalpana, what comparative study about what?
Like comparative study, like German and Indian, or we need to do the individual study about the German diaspora only.
Say, go if you're looking at the examination point of view or the exercises point of view, each unit is separate. You will have to go through the unit and see the answers, and the same questions, similar type of questions will be there in your end examination. I don't think people are in the units you are expected to do a comparative, though you can always deduce something out in terms of as we go about. That's why we keep doing this extra talk in terms of trying to show you that actually there is a, even though they are different, more often than not the underlying theme and story is the same. Kalpana?
Yeah, sure, sir. I understand. Actually, this is my first class, so I just wanted to understand this.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome to the class. Kangat has obviously an additional nugget of fact. Germans like Father Gundert, who wrote the first Malayalam contributor to Indian literature. See, inevitably, remember during in Gandhi's South African time, there was this German. I forget his name. He was one of the part of the group when they were building their farm there. There was a German very much out there. So more often than not, if you see human history again, there has been active collaborations between civilizations, between literature, between language. Even if you see our religious books, there's a lot of give and take between various books. Religions have taken out of each other, cultures have taken out of each other. There was never a case where there was watertight compartments. There was never this case. In fact, the internet is actually an extension of whatever humans were doing as we evolved. We were always, and inevitably humans have seen that when we share, we are able to enrich more. Kangat, thank you.
So, one thing I wanted to probably you may have more knowledge on this. The Protestant and Catholic churches in Germany, do they have some kind of even present day rivalry or something that goes like, or even in Europe as such? And
There
does that
is,
have
there
any
is.
kind of impact on like their I think ethnic, even the ethnic ties that they have within their country? Like we were discussing about that in Germany also.
See, definitely, we need to understand that each group would have a certain amount of a certain tensions do come across when there is a sense that there's a difference. It's like neighbors. In spite of the fact they might be of the same cultural component, there might be some amount of rivalry in terms of when you are sharing the same space. But over a period of time, you would also understand the fact that when there is a certain fairness in the system, and you are able to communicate, then that rivalry, Europe had a lot of Catholic Protestant rivalry. In fact, if you see the British Isles, uh, 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 the Ireland is Catholic, whereas the rest of the Britain is Protestant, and there has been major friction between that. Northern Ireland is occupational by the British. So obviously these rivalries are there, which would be there in any kind of religion, because each religion also is not monolith. There are sects. There are how it is led to the yes. Kangat has this additional piece of information. The Christian rivalry in India is much more multidimensional, because there are other sects which are also proliferating. But the fact is, in Europe, yes, there is active rivalry between Protestant Church and the Catholic Church.
Yes,
Krishna?
sir. Yes, yeah, that would, I think I can learn more of that if it's important.
Again, so if you want to read a little bit more about it, you can go and read more about it. Inevitably, each aspect of as I said, that's the beauty of scholarship and academics. Each aspect of information can further be hyperlinked to more information, and then you suddenly realize that you are down a rabbit hole, because there is so much to read and figure out. So typically the way to go about is understand a little bit on the larger macro scale, but logically anything which is difference in terms of identity will have certain amount of rivalry, because there is politics involved. Shrestha?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just in case anybody missed out, an important announcement: we have a class on Sudanese diaspora on the 25th November, 7:30 p.m. evening. This is addition to your regular class at 3. Okay. For all those who who are attending for the first time, Kalpana, etc., any questions? In Christianity, there are no sects. For example, in India, there is the Latin Rite. There are number of sects. Yes, of course. Anjali, are you from Kerala?
No, sir.
Okay.
I'm a Christian. I'm not
Okay,
from
okay,
Kerala.
okay.
Yeah.
So Anjali shares this further information. Of course, see that also Anjali and the rest is basically because as people came in, India was always the country, the go-to country for all persecutions historically. And as these people came and settled, they created they didn't assimilate, they integrated. They carried on with their own culture, leading to all these multicultural country that we are today. And obviously each culture differs from the other culture by the practices they do, and that what makes it more enriching and unique. Anjali, you have any question?
No, sir. As of now,
Okay,
no.
okay. You had raised your hand, so that's why.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's perfectly fine. Any other question?
So it was while I was writing my MPhil thesis that I came across this book on some of these. I think shared. Perhaps I may have shared it earlier also with you. So there were these German German bishops, and these fathers who were living in Kerala back during, I think,
Correct.
1947. Yeah, and they were looking for recruiting some nurses back in,
60s.
like,
That was
yeah,
in the
yeah,
60s.
yeah.
Yes,
That was
you
in the 60s.
correct,
So
correct.
yeah, that was also something that came to my mind. Since you were just telling that.
In fact, Shrestha, if you can share it with the new group, because there are a lot of new students out here, new people
Yeah,
out here.
I'll share it. I'll share that the
So
book and the.
this is an amazing. It's there on YouTube also. How these young girls from Kerala were recruited as guests, and they traveled to Germany. They didn't know anything other than Malayalam. They went to Germany, learned that language, became nurses. A lot of them then chose to stay back in Germany, got married to Keralite boys, and stayed back. They are still in Germany. So it was a beautiful this video. It's there on YouTube, and you get a sense about how and that's where things have changed. At that time, when they had gone out there was no connectivity, so they had to write letters. Obviously, the diasporic experiences was much different than what it is today. Things have changed so much. So it's a beautiful thing. Shresha, you can share it in the group. The rest of the people can take advantage of that information. It's a beautiful, well-made documentary, and used in funerals. Was written by German missionary in 19th century. Okay, Ganga shares another aspect. There's a lot of information on Kerala and Kerala culture. Thankfully to the group, this comes about. And again, as I said, that becomes the best part of a class or academics, is the fact that when you are in a class and then you start sharing, there are new aspects of information that come across, and then you say, oh, I didn't look at it that way. So in fact, when I was looking at that Piers Morgan Bassem Youssef interview that I talked about, I actually went back to Google and say and write and find out about the first crusade. And then there was this whole set of information. Also, remember the fact that when you're using digital media, always cross verify, because it's very easy to put up misinformation or wrong information. So, always cross verify. And then we also realize the fact that, that's how human beings have been able to gather so much of, because there is an active collaboration of information and knowledge which is done. And today this knowledge is being collaborated and collated on a global scale, which is why we are able to acquire information very fast. Okay. If there are no further questions, Germans established BMP school in Kerala, which improved literacy. Kangat has another nugget of information from Kerala. I think we should collate these chats also. This becomes a great piece of information source from the class. So if there are no other further questions, let's call it a day. Wish you all a happy Diwali, whoever is celebrating Diwali. Anyway, it's a major festival in the country now. So have a wonderful Diwali, and see you next Saturday, and we'll do the Dutch diaspora then. By then, have a nice evening. Bye-bye.